Ronnie, it's Michael and Donnie. What do you think about this 90-win prediction that's being pinned on Sandy Alderson?
First, I've been able to catch you guys a couple times. One, congratulations, you guys, two good guys who do a great job, and I hope you guys break a leg.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
great.
Ron.
Wow, 90. It's almost talk about Hari Kario kind of jumping on your sword. That's quite a prediction. I think there's been some, I know you guys don't pay attention to Vegas lines, but I think some of the Vegas lines are 73, 74, 75, whatever that number is. So that's quite a leap. I think one thing we've learned, and I guess I will answer this question in a second. One thing we've learned is that anything can happen. You can have one of those magical seasons. We saw it last year with Boston. That being said, a lot of ifs have to turn right for the Mets to get to that 9-0 number.
And the thing that bothers me even more than what Sandy said, because Sandy said should, and I disagree with that, but, I take some of that with a grain of salt. But when Fred Wilpon, according to the report, said, we better win 90, well, what exactly would happen if they didn't win 90? And the person I think that would have the bullseye on them, as unfortunate as that is, would be Terry, right?
Yeah, I think it would be Terry, but I also think I think what and I always tried. Sandy's a bright guy. He's as bright as any guy I've ever met that works in the game. So what is his real intention on saying his team should win 90? I think that in the past there's been a lot of downplaying. Hey, we've got a lot of young players. We're hoping we can do this, we can do that, but never ever jumping off the ledge, kind of what he did with 90 wins. And I think that the most important thing is that what I read between the lines is that he is trying to instill a sense of emergency, not only to himself, his staff, but to everyone else, is that they're on the clock now. We've been able to give them, or the Mets and the people that run the Mets, a push because a lot of things have happened. A lot of contracts really burden them for some time with guys that underachieved, and you guys all know who they are. But, the time's now. And I'm not saying they're going to win 90 games, but, the time now is to start getting better, to start seeing, some kind of light at the end of the tunnel that this organization's moved in the right way.
We are joined by Ron Darling of SNY and also of the MLB Network. And the interesting thing, and I think Don just hit on it in the middle of the question, John Sterling, when I used to work with him on radio, used to talk about his NBA days and how coaches hated to have the hat hung on them, where people would predict great things for the team, and really the coach is the one that has to deliver. And the last time we saw this in New York, Ron, was when Jim Dolan came out and said, I think this is a championship team. Well, Mike Woodson was as good as gone at that point because the Knicks just aren't that good. So why would you sign Terry to this extension and then hang such an unrealistic number on him? It seems like Alderson likes Terry. As far as I could tell, you could know better. And I just think it's unfair to Terry Collins here.
I think you're right. That's where the bullseye's gone. I don't think that was the intent. Because I'm with you. I think he likes Terry, and there's no reason he wouldn't have signed him if he didn't feel that way about him. I don't think that was the intent. Maybe that's what has happened. I think the intent really is some kind of shot across the bow to his players who let's go. I mean, it's time to aspire to be better than just trying to be a little better this year, or, they were in third place ahead of the Phillies last year. Well, third place brings you nothing, Michael and Don. You know that better than anybody. You've got to get to a point where you're an organization like the St. Louis Cardinals, like the Tigers, like the Yankees, and others, and I hate to leave others out, but, where it is just unacceptable if you don't have, one, a winning season, and two, for some of these organizations, a chance to play in the World Series. So, unless you have that kind of team, then you have to do some radical things, and hopefully the Mets are doing that.
All right, I got a bunch of questions about this team. Okay. Who's going to be their first baseman?
First baseman's going to be Ike Davis to start the season, but don't be surprised if Josh Satin gets a lot of at-bats. That NL East has a lot of talented left-handed starters, and don't be surprised if Satin gets a lot of at-bats. But I believe Ike is going to win that job in the spring.
Who's going to be the leadoff hitter?
Leadoff hitter is going to be an interesting thing. I've heard a lot of talk. Now, he's hurt a little bit, or at least has a little bit of an owie, Eric Young Jr. But, whether you like Eric or don't like him, the Mets played 500 ball down the stretch after they acquired him. So he had something to do with that. I'm not saying it had all to do with it, but he had something to do with that. So I think they like him. But I think that that leaves the young guy out, and I think it's a big, huge mistake if they don't let Lagares play center field.
Is Tejada their full-time shortstop all year?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If he is, I've never seen more disparaging talk about the guy who's going to start for you at shortstop. I think, I don't know. I think what happens, this town, everyone has their connection, and everyone wants to say something about someone, and that's all well and good. But I think what you tend to forget sometimes, that you're dealing with human beings, and you're dealing with a young shortstop who's coming off a really terrible season. He's had a lot of stuff talked about him, and you're putting him in a place that, hey, listen, what do you try to do? It doesn't matter if you do radio, TV, or a baseball team. You're trying to put your people in a position to excel. And I think with the comments and things that have happened, they're making it almost impossible for him to excel unless he has that chip on his shoulder starting the season, which has him have that kind of season he had 2 years ago.
Well, there was some good news today, Ron, because John Neese's MRI came back clean, and we were really worried about it when we heard yesterday. So that's a positive, and I don't think he's going to have as much of a setback where he's still a possibility to pitch opening day.
Yeah, I think what has happened, guys, is that 20 years ago, guys used to get dead arms in the middle of March, and it was a natural kind of thing. But I think guys throw much more in the off season, and when they come to spring training, they're ready to go. So I think what happens instead of mid-March, sometimes they get it at the end of February, the beginning of March. And I think that's what would have happened, the dead arm thing that he had, where he just didn't feel like it was right. But that's a really positive thing, that it didn't show any problems.
If for some reason he wouldn't be open or ready for opening day, would you go with Colon or Wheeler?
Well, I would honestly, with an older pitcher like Colon who's got the tiny calf issue, calves are a very serious thing, whether you're an everyday player or a pitcher, so they're going to be very careful with an older pitcher like that. I think it would be a really interesting thing to say, hey, Neese, you're on a program that's going to get you the fourth or fifth start of the year. That gives you extra time. Colon, we want to make sure that you're 100% healthy too. I would give it to Wheeler. Why not?